All right, guys, over the weekend, Todd Gurley told 92.9 The Game that Deion Sanders had not given him his blessing to wear number 21 with the Falcons. Well, since then, Deion has tweeted that he was only joking with Todd, and it wasn't the number that made Prime, but Prime that made the number. And I can hear him saying it just that way. So, Shannon, are you surprised that Todd Gurley wants to wear number 21?
No, I mean, he was 3 in college. He was 30 in the NFL. I thought he would just naturally go back to number 30, but I understand there's a gentleman that has the number that just switched to 30 last year in order to honor his brother who had passed away recently. So obviously that was off the table. But numbers mean things to players. Jenny, because I was 1, which means I wasn't expected to get a number by the time training camp was over with. So they was just going to take that 1, put it back, and Shannon Sharpe was going to be on its way. But when I made the team, basically all the 80 numbers were taken. So, I had a choice. I could get 81, I could get 85 or 87. Well, Mark Jackson was 80, Vance was 82. He's like, hey, man, why don't you just go ahead and take 81? So we'll be 80 through 84. Because 80 was Mark, Vance was 82, Michael Young was 83, and Ricky Nattiel was 84. I was 81. But it means something. Now, I go to Baltimore. 84, Jermaine Lewis doesn't want to part with that number. And I didn't want 88 because I thought 88 was a dumb-looking number. I said, nah, I don't want that. I wanted 82. So you know what I did? I said, Freaky Frank, that's what we call it, Freaky Frank Wainwright. I want the number. He's like, okay. I said, I'll buy you. He's a fisherman. I bought him a bass boat. I got the number. So the numbers mean something. I understand that, Skip, I wanted 82. I wanted an even number. I didn't want 88, and I didn't want no odd number because it looks ridiculous. And so I partied with that number. But it's not like Atlanta, Skip. Atlanta, look, I grew up in Georgia all my life. It's not like they got a storied history like the Steelers or the Bears or the Packers or, something like that. I mean, for the most part, they got a few good players. But I guess from what I was reading, Skip, they haven't retired anyone's number. So probably, some of the most famous players in Falcons history, not a whole lot of people know if you don't follow the NFL. Tommy Nobis, he was the first, overall pick, Skip, if I'm not mistaken, in 66. Bart Kowski, Billy White, Hughes Johnson. And on defensive side, I think Claude Humphrey plays there, Deion and Jesse Tuggle. But when you think of 21, Skip, and you Atlanta, it's time. They still wear those 21 jerseys. Time hadn't played there in over 2 decades. But when you go to Atlanta and you see someone in a 21 Falcons jersey, they think time. D'Angelo Hollis had that number. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Marcus Trufant had that number. But it's time. But I guess Gurley says, hey, I'm going to make it even more famous. I rubbed it in because I know time watching. He about to make 21 more famous than the original 21. That's what's about to happen. Run that thing, TG.
Okay. I'm going to rise above this, and I'm going to ask the question that needs to be asked. And I get it that you grew up in Georgia and you still have a home in the Atlanta area. I cannot fathom, I cannot understand or comprehend how the Falcons couldn't have at least retired just one number in their history, because it's the number, as you point out. You have to retire 21. This is Deion Sanders. He was early on Neon Deion, and then he became Prime Time. There's never been anything in the history of this league like Deion Sanders. He is by far the greatest cornerback who ever stepped on a football field. It is football blasphemy not to have retired that number, and then to let Desmond Trufant wear it after he was drafted in the first round, 22 overall, in 2013. You realize that over the last 7 years, the Falcons allowed Desmond Trufant to wear that hallowed, beloved number 21 as a cornerback. And he did make one Pro Bowl, but just one Pro Bowl in 2015. And then they recently cut him. So remember, the Atlanta Falcons cut a guy who was wearing the most hallowed number 21. And I'm dumbfounded because not only to me is Deion the greatest cornerback by far, Shannon, to me, he's the greatest athlete who ever played. And I know we could debate that all day and all night, but listen, Deion was the starting center fielder for the New York Yankees and the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. Deion Sanders in Florida, in Fort Myers, was all-state in basketball. And I'll never forget the line Barry Switzer told me. This is in the 1995 season when they first acquired Deion. Obviously, he won one Super Bowl in San Francisco and turned around the next year and helped the Cowboys get over the hump against the 49ers and win the next Super Bowl. And Barry Switzer watched him on the practice field after the first couple of camp practices and said, it's like he's not governed by our same gravity. Like there's something that doesn't hold him back because, as you remember, he ran 4.27 at the combine, and that was without even warming up. He had his sweats on, and they said, you going to run? He said, well, I don't know. Do you really want? Yeah, run. Okay, I'll run 140. And he unzips his sweat top, takes it off, takes his sweatpants off, and goes 4.27. He wasn't governed as a player by our same gravity. And so when you've got that guy, and I realize you had him for 5 years, then he went to San Francisco, then he went to Dallas, obviously went to the Redskins, and he went to the Ravens. I get all that. But for 5 years, he showed you he was the most dominating cornerback in the league, and he made 3 straight Pro Bowls. And as you know, Shannon, he was also the most dangerous, lethal kick returner in the league, especially in those first 5 years in Atlanta. I've just never seen anything like him on a football field. And I get it that the Falcons have not had the prettiest past, but if you got a guy who made that number what it is, he made it prime time's number, then you should have retired it a long time ago. I can't believe we're even having to have this conversation. It's shameful that we're talking about Desmond Trufant and then Todd Gurley. And I love Todd Gurley, but what has he proven yet? Is he a Hall of Fame running back? I don't know. Maybe he'll bounce back and show us that, but I haven't seen all that just yet. I know he had one huge year, but can you have another couple of those to make it a Hall of Fame run? I don't know. And we're talking about, should Todd Gurley wear number 21? I don't even care. I only care that this franchise, this woeful franchise, has made a lot of bad decisions, but it made the worst decisions not retiring 21.
Well, Skip, I think the thing is that what happened is that when Mr. Blank you got to realize Mr. Blank was not the original owner. He was not the owner at the time that Time was drafted. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Rankin Smith owned the team then, and he ended up buying it from him. And so, Skip, for me, a lot of that has to do with like the ownership at the time. For me, Skip, I believe if a guy goes to the Hall of Fame and his primary career was in that uniform, they should, out of respect, they should retire the number. That's just me personally. But hey, I understand when you get situations like the Bears and the Giants and the Packers, Skip, they've had so many players that's in the Hall of Fame, you're going to run out of numbers. You know, they got 20, 25 guys in the Hall of Fame. You only have so many numbers, Skip. So I get situations like that. But I don't think the Falcons are going to have to worry about that problem. I don't think they're going to have to worry about, well, we can't retire this number because we're about to run out of numbers like some of these other storage franchises. Because you got to realize, Skip, the Giants have been playing since the 20s, the Steelers since the 30s, and some of these teams, the Packers, their original team, the Acme Packers. So they go back. And so you can understand when they win 5, 6, 7 championships before it became the Super Bowl. So you can understand they've had a lot of great players that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But when you look at the Falcons, they've only got a handful of them. Claude Humphreys played, Deion, and Morton Anderson. If I'm not mistaken, Skip, those are the only guys that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame that spent a portion of their career with the Atlanta Falcons. But if you from Atlanta, if you follow the Falcons, it's Deion Sanders and Mike Vick. Mike might be a little bit more popular because he played the quarterback, the Michael Vick experience, but those are the two most popular players in Falcons history. And I don't care who you poll, those are the two. It's Mike Vick and Deion.
Okay, and remember this, Shannon. Remember how fortunate, how blessed, how flat out lucky that the Atlanta Falcons were in the 1989 draft.
89.
Remember, it goes Troy Aikman, number 1. I'm good with that. Tony Mandarich went to Green Bay, number 2. That's where Deion should have gone. You could argue I would have taken him if I were Detroit over Barry Sanders, and I definitely would have taken him, as great as Derek Thomas ended up being. I would have taken Deion Sanders over Derek Thomas to Kansas City at 4. But they were very blessed that he fell to 5 in the 89 draft.
Right.
So,
but Skip,
come on. You got to be thankful for what he brought to you.
The reason why Kansas City didn't take him, they had 2 all-pro corners in Albert Lewis and Kevin Ross. They had 2 Pro Bowl, 2 all-pro corners, so they say they wanted a pass rusher. Now, him going, look, you can't fault Detroit for taking Barry Sanders, 15,000 yards and 2. But the mistake was at 2.
I can. I'm sorry. Yeah.
But Skip, the mistake, because if you look at it, Skip, everybody in the top 5 made the Hall of Fame with the exception of Tony Mandarich. So everybody got their pick right. He was very, I mean, look, it's hard to argue that draft. I think time could, if Barry theoretically, Skip, should have went to Green Bay. And then, okay, if you want to rearrange it, because there's no way I'm taking an offensive lineman over Barry Sanders, because the offensive lineman can't put points on the board. That guy's going to put points on the board. He's going to put butts in the seat, Skip, because they want to see what he's going to do. Nobody's going to watch. Man, I can't wait to see Tony Mandarich pancake somebody. But Skip, from that, I agree with you. Being from Atlanta and still have a home in the Buckhead area, Skip, Deion is it. Michael Vick. Hell, they should retire Michael Vick because they're never going to get nobody that can generate that kind of excitement. Matt Ryan can win 3 Super Bowls. He's never going to generate the excitement that Michael Vick generated. No,